Un saludo, gente buena, bonita y barata. XP. Casi siempre los ateos, cuando hacemos un video mencionando los argumentos para creer en Dios, casi siempre lo hacemos en manera de burla y de sarcasmo, especialmente cuando exponemos los argumentos de los creyentes religiosos, creyentes del Dios bíblico o Dios del teísmo clásico, argumentos emocionales. Pero aquí este video no va con ese tono. En este video vengo a demostrar a toda la gente los que para mí son los mejores argumentos a favor de la existencia de Dios y sin utilizar sarcasmo. Obviamente no es el argumentos a favor del Dios, del teísmo clásico, del Dios bíblico, es únicamente argumentos a favor del Dios como una fuerza inteligente creadora del universo. Así que espero que disfruten esta colección de argumentos que yo considero deístas. Que la pasen muy bien.
Number two, the complex order in the universe. During the last 30 years, scientists have discovered that the existence of intelligent life depends upon a delicate and complex balance of initial conditions simply given in the Big Bang itself. We now know that life-prohibiting universes are vastly more probable than any life-permitting universe like ours. How much more probable? Well, the answer is that the chances that the universe should be life-permitting are so infinitesimal as to be incomprehensible and incalculable. For example, Stephen Hawking has estimated that if the rate of the universe's expansion 1 second after the Big Bang had been smaller by even 1 part in 100,000 million, the universe would have recollapsed into a hot fireball. P.C.W. Davies has calculated that the odds against the initial conditions being suitable for later star formation, without which planets could not exist, is 1 followed by 1,000 billion zeros, at least. Frank Tipler and John Barrow estimate that a change in the strength of gravity or of the weak force by only 1 part in 10 to the 100th power would have prevented a life-permitting universe. There are around 50 such quantities and constants present in the Big Bang which must be fine-tuned in this way if the universe is to permit life. And it's not just each quantity which must be finely tuned. Their ratios to one another must also be exquisitely fine-tuned. So improbability is multiplied by improbability until our minds are reeling in incomprehensible numbers. There is no physical reason why these constants and quantities possess the values they do. The one-time agnostic physicist Paul Davies comments, "Through my scientific work, I have come to believe more and more strongly that the physical universe is put together with an ingenuity so astonishing that I cannot accept it merely as a brute fact." Similarly, Fred Hoyle remarks, "A common-sense interpretation of the facts suggests that a super-intellect has monkeyed with physics." Robert Jastrow, the head of NASA's Goddard Institute for Space Studies, calls this the most powerful evidence for the existence of God.
Nuestro universo es una especie de máquina ajustada a la perfección. La ciencia afirma que hay unas 20 cifras. 20 constantes fundamentales de la naturaleza que confieren al universo las características que vemos hoy en día. Se trata de cifras que indican la masa de los electrones, o las fuerzas de la gravedad, la electromagnética, la nuclear fuerte y la débil. Mientras los mandos de nuestra máquina estén ajustados a los valores exactos de cada una de las 20 cifras, obtendremos el universo que conocemos y amamos.
Pero si variamos las cantidades en retocando los ajustes, aunque solo sea un poco,
Las consecuencias serán dramáticas. Por ejemplo, si aumentara la fuerza electromagnética, los átomos se repelerían con mayor energía. Y las fuerzas nucleares que hacen que las estrellas brillen se agotarían. Las estrellas, incluido el Sol, se extinguirían haciendo desaparecer a nuestro universo. ¿Qué es lo que ajusta las cifras de estas 20 constantes con tanta precisión?
The universe is a very unlikely place. The values of some basic physical constants have been precisely adjusted to make our lives possible. Tiny changes in these values would mean that we couldn't be here at all. Is this genuinely new evidence pointing to a God who created the universe? Why are things so finely balanced to make possible life on a razor's edge? But what do scientists mean when they talk about cosmic fine-tuning?
It turns out, and this is a very surprising, unexpected discovery, that the laws of physics, the basic given fabric of the world, had to be very specific, very finely tuned, as we sometimes say, for the possibility of carbon-based life appearing at all. It's a very surprising conclusion. But it's true, and all scientists would acknowledge that's the case.
Suppose we had a machine that could generate universes. We'd have to decide what laws of physics we wanted to give our universe and make sure we had one dial for every law of physics we wanted to give our universe on our universe generating machine. But we'd also have to tune the relative strengths or weaknesses of those different laws. So, for example, if we wanted to give our universe a law of gravity, we'd want to say, well, how strong would we want our law of gravity to be, and so on. Well, if we took a machine that was set up to represent the laws of physics that actually exist in our universe, one dial for every law that we actually have and all the strengths the way that they actually are, but we took just one of those dials and changed it just a minute percentage, then we pressed the Produce a Universe button. What would be produced? Well, scientists have been astonished to discover, running the numbers as it were, that what would be produced then would be a universe that was lifeless and dull and uninteresting.
The Big Bang is currently accepted in the scientific community. And the initial conditions, if you think about it, if you have an expansion, like I don't know, you can imagine this Big Bang, all the energy and mass going out, and there's an amount of gravity which will slow it down. And so if you have, like, say, too much mass at the beginning, too much mass and energy at the beginning, then the expansion takes place, but it contracts again too quickly, and you wouldn't actually have the formation of stars and galaxies. On the other hand, if there was a bit less mass, then the expansion would be so rapid that stars and galaxies wouldn't condense. And it's amazing because the initial conditions which actually are required in order for us to be here, if you change those by 1 part in a million billion, and that's what I call fine-tuning, then we wouldn't be here.
A very simple and central example is the question of where does carbon come from? The very early universe doesn't make any carbon. It's very simple, it only makes simple things. Hydrogen and helium, and they're pretty boring in terms of chemistry. Now, where does carbon come from? There's only one place in the whole universe where carbon is made, and it's in the interior nuclear furnaces of the stars. We are people of stardust, made of the ashes of dead stars. And it turns out that the process by which carbon is made inside the stars is an extraordinarily delicate process. In fact, it looks at first sight as though it couldn't happen at all. It's only possible because there's a very large enhancement effect called a resonance in the trade, which makes it go much quicker than we might have expected. And that resonance is there because the laws of nuclear physics take a very specific form. If they were a little bit different, either there would be no resonance or it would be in the wrong place at the wrong energy. That's a very striking example of how finely tuned the universe has to be for us to be inhabitants of it.
I can give you one of the most famous examples of that, if you like, and that's due to Fred Hoyle, who was an atheist astrophysicist. Interesting background to Fred Hoyle, because originally he was opposed to the Big Bang because he thought it meant that the universe had an origin, and if it had an origin in time, you might need a god to make it. Now, theologians are, more blasé about that, but Hoyle, as an atheist, was really troubled by that, and he proposed the steady-state theory instead, which was eventually overthrown. And the Big Bang reigns supreme. But Hoyle did some really, really important work on how the chemical elements of which the stars, of the planets, and ultimately us, of what are made. And he discovered that you need a very, very fine balance of the forces in nature in order to make carbon inside stars, which is essential for life, and in order to make oxygen without destroying all the carbon in the process. So two seeming coincidences necessary in order to get the materials for life. And when Hoyle made that discovery, he was moved to remark that a super intellect has monkeyed with physics and with all of chemistry and biology, and that there are no blind forces worth speaking about in nature. It's a put-up job, it was the kind of way he expressed it. He was deeply impressed by this, and here you have an atheist, a man who called religion an illusion, and he said that in books and on TV programs in the early 50s and so on. Here's a man who, with that kind of background, talked about a super intellect monkeying with physics.
Scientists discovered the first examples of cosmic fine-tuning back in the 1950s and 60s. Today, they know of many more examples, and some of these have to be very precisely tuned. Life really is balanced on a razor's edge.